how likely is it that we could see a top team lose early?
Well, I said moderate just because of the sheer number of opportunities involved. You've got Clemson facing Georgia right out of the gates. You have Alabama facing Miami and Florida. They'll be favored, but not by a ton. You've got Ohio State facing Minnesota and Oregon right out of the gates. With new quarterbacks, that does open up opportunities for upsets. Whether it's a top team or the top team, Alabama, we'll see. But there could be a little bit of a shakeup there.
All right, we'll turn to David. As you look to the first month, David, we know the schedules. We know who's playing whom. Where do you see a potential pitfall for a top team losing early?
Wendy, it's the easiest question in the world if you just say, well, Clemson and Georgia are going to play each other. Obviously, one of those two are going to lose. But when I look at, it's not necessarily the quarterbacks for me. It's all the replacements up front on the offensive line for Ohio State. New quarterback, the weapons are going to be good. The running backs are going to be good. But breaking in that spot without a ton of experience up front, figuring out who you are, what you are at the quarterback spot. So you look at Ohio State, yes, they're going to be more talented than Oregon, but I look at that as a spot where you could possibly see an upset.
Again, Clemson and Georgia playing right out of the gate. And to your point, one of those two teams has to lose. Factor number 2 would be an elite team stumbling as we move through the season. Look no further than LSU and Penn State last year, who were ranked 6th and 7th, respectively, and then they were underwater by season's end. Bill, how likely is this to happen in 2021?
Honestly, you look at 6 through 10 in the preseason top 10 list, there's a whole bunch of teams that either have really tough schedules and new quarterbacks, Notre Dame, for instance, with 5 straight pretty tough games in the middle of the season. And then you've got teams like Iowa State and North Carolina and Cincinnati who might not have the depth that other teams have. Obviously, the quality is obvious, but it could just take a little bit of a slip up, a couple of injuries to derail their chances overall. So I think the odds of this one are pretty high overall.
All right, so we'll turn to Harry and then say, if the odds are high, Harry, who's vulnerable? Where do you see this potentially happening?
For me, it's Texas A&M, and before Aggie fans get upset, listen, guys, I think out of the top 10 teams that this could happen to, your team is the best one. However, I do think because you have a new quarterback, because you have an inexperienced offensive line, albeit talented, it's going to take time for them to gel. They don't have the benefit of a Big 12 schedule like Iowa State does, or an ACC schedule like North Carolina does, or even looking at Notre Dame's schedule, it's not nearly as tough as an SEC slate. So when you take those factors into account, right, the new quarterback, the new offensive line, and you have that tough schedule, even if you do get Alabama at home, I do think that the potential there for them to get got in a game or two is higher than those other teams.
Don't apologize, Harry.
It certainly makes sense.
They can suck it up and swallow it. It's all good. You don't have to apologize for that.
Listen, we can always count on David Pollack not to set the fence. It's what we appreciate most. Let's look at a third factor here, and this is one we talk about every year. We haven't seen it yet, but it is bound to happen at some point, and that is a group of 5 teams that might shake things up. Last season, we saw 3 group of 5 squads finish the year in the top 25. Cincy, Coastal Carolina, and Louisiana, and really a genuine rise of a mid-major power could shake things up. Is this the year, Bill Connolly, for a group of 5 team?
Man, few teams are going to have better opportunities than Cincinnati has this year. Not only because they built their reputation last year with a strong finish, competing athletically with Georgia right at the end of the year as well, but now to get Notre Dame and Indiana on the road on your schedule the following year, we definitely, we put the bar pretty high for what you have to do as a group of 5, but that's all just set right up there for Cincinnati. So we'll see if they can do it. Louisiana has Texas. That's going to help them, but you figure it's all about Cincinnati.
Yeah, listen, if there's a roadmap to how to do it, I think Cincy's on the right track in scheduling some of those powerhouse teams. David, who are you watching if it were to happen with these mid-major teams?
Well, also, Cincinnati also starts in the top 10. So it ain't like they got that far to go, so it's realistic for Cincinnati. But other teams are going to be Liberty. But I think Coastal Carolina they're not. Listen, neither one of these teams are getting in. Cincinnati is the only team that is the only answer that's acceptable. But I think Coastal Carolina is a team that, with their offense, their excitement, their star power at quarterback with Grayson McCall, their experience coming back, their schedule, App State is going to be a difficult game. Besides that, I mean, that's Georgia Southern, but I see a lot of winning in their future. So I could see Coastal Carolina going undefeated and us talking about them at the end of the year. But Cincinnati is the only realistic shot to get in the playoff.
Yeah, David, Bill, you guys hit the nail right on the head. For me, I think the easiest pick here is Cincinnati. If you look at this team, they're returning a lot of talent. And, I mean, just they've been consistent the last few years. What Luke Fickell's done with this program, I think they have 6 losses the last 3 years, and they've all come on the road to ranked opponents. So Cincinnati's legitimate here. Now, Desmond Ridder improved so much over the year last year, and if he can continue that into 2021, obviously they've got Indiana on the schedule, then they've got a bye week, and then they've got Notre Dame. So if there's going to be a group of 5 that's going to make a splash here, I think it's going to be Cincinnati.
Bill, look in your article, again, out on ESPN.com, detail the factors for so-called on-the-field chaos or a potential shakeup. We don't have a meter for it necessarily, but what do you put the percentage that we will see something we haven't seen in quite some time?
We're trying as hard as we can to will this to happen this year, I think. It has definitely been,
Isn't that
20
true?
or 28 for those 4 playoff bids. It's been kind of wild, so it would be interesting for a shakeup. And man, Cincinnati, though, Desmond Ridder, that defense, that schedule, this is the year for. We'll see if they can pull it off.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.